When we say, we may take it as an umbrella LGBT, but in the Indian context, the T and the H is hijras. It's a different community altogether, a different gender altogether. Because India being a conservative country, lesbians, gays and bisexual is about sexuality. It is about your sexual identity. With whom do you like romantically? But in case of transgenders and hijras, it is about your gender identity. So there is a man, there is a woman, and there is a third gender called hijras and transgenders. So that identity has always been there in the Indian context. In ancient culture, in scriptures and religious texts, we find the mention or references of trans people. So it was easier for the society and the government to accept transgender as a gender identity, but not so easy to accept lesbians, gays, and bisexual, because it is a taboo, because it's about sexuality and all. So this is the reason why the government passed the law, the Supreme Court passed the law in the rights of transgender people. It was easier for that. In rural India, it is still believed that a hijra person, if she blesses, it will come true. And if she gets angry, if she curses, that will also come true. So people try not to offend hijras in rural areas. But in cities, it is not such, because people don't believe much. So people are abusive, people are violent towards hijras and transgenders. They are target of violence, and even again, the community doesn't report, because reporting means the police would ask family details, and everything is hidden. The community is not out as open. So they are still in the closet. So like in April 2014, when the Supreme Court gave equal rights to transgender, there was a historic judgment, and there was huge celebration all around the country, because the Supreme Court recognized the very valid rights of Indian citizens. Those were so far unrecognized by the government. So that was a very great day, and it was a very, very progressive judgment. But it took a few more years for the government to prepare a bill and to pass a bill to make it a law. But the judgment was there, but there was no law. There was no policy, there was no scheme how to implement the law. So this was the reason. It was in 2018 finally when the government of India passed the bill, Transgender Protection Rights Bill, and now it is a bill, it is a valid law now. It is in action now. So the lives of transgenders have changed after the bill, because a lot of schemes have been started by the government, where many transgender peoples are being trained in different skills, including the program that we are doing here. So SPACE is an organization that works on health and human rights with LGBTIQ people, and we have been working since last 20 years. And we have around 5,000 members registered with us. So we have services like HIV intervention program, we have suicide prevention program with us, and we have a skill training program. So these are the programs which are being supported by the government. Some of the programs are supported by different UN agencies and other private donors. So like we have a lot of volunteers with us, those who reach out to the field, and they mobilize the community, and they access the community members, and they bring them here for counseling and for testing and for other programs and activities. But then most of them that we work with, 5,000 plus members, most of them are from very poor socio-economic backgrounds. So they don't have very high profile families, or they're not from business families, they are not highly educated, and they don't have jobs. So basically we work with more those who are street-based or working class LGBTI community. Many of the people coming to us, especially from the trans community and gays, are from sex work profession. Because of the bullying and violence in schools, abuse in schools, they couldn't continue their education in schools. And there is no hope of studying in universities. So ultimately, with no job and no education, the only alternative, the only option left is sex work. So many of them are unfortunately into sex work, and they want to come out of the sex work. This is the reason why we started the skill development training program. But most of them, they come out with this idea of they want to become makeup artist, because there is a lot of opportunities in Bollywood film city to get employment. Many of them said they wanted to become fashion designers or dancers and all. These are very traditional, stereotypical occupations. There was a lot of options of learning computers and other things, but then they turned up, said, okay, first let us start with makeup art, because that is it's easier for the makeup industry to employ trans people. Already there are, and it was easier for the community member also to learn. They said it will help us. Even if they don't get a job, they said it will help us in our occupation as dancers, as sex workers. A lot needs to be done. So we do a lot of advocacy with employers. But then multinational companies, on the one hand, they're open about employing people, LGBT people. But general employees, if you shopkeepers and storekeepers, they are reluctant. They are not as open, because they don't have such policies as such, and there is no law that says you can't discriminate against LGBT people. So if they find out some of their employees LGBT, they might fire them, and they don't hire such people. We have seen a lot of changes in these 20 years. Someone who was in sex work now is working with us as counselors, as outreach workers, as volunteers with us, or as professionals working with us. So we provided them training, we helped them in education, and they're now professionally working with us. There are many cases where we have counseled with family members. So now they're integrated into families as well. So these are some changes over the period of time we have witnessed. And there are some cases also, unfortunately, where we see many members, they literally die on streets of HIV and TB, where we were unable to reach them and they died. And sometimes the police call us and they say, this is a transgender person, do you know them? Because we're working with trans people. And when we say, sometimes we identify them. And when we call up the family members, they refuse to accept the bodies. They say, we don't know who are you talking about. So they become so stone-hearted. So those are the periods then when we go to the cremation, we do the funerals, and we do the last rites. So over these 20 years, we have seen many lives changing, and we have seen many deaths also. So the situation is not very, I would say, pleasing. Still the law has changed, but the mindset will take time to change.